Hi, welcome back to Logging Miles, Views from the Seat. My name is Vince. I'm just about to start my day here today, but I had a thought I'd like to share with all of you. And remember, keep in mind, this is just my thoughts, my views. You're welcome to comment. I'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear your views. This morning I was thinking about the state of the industry. People have this idea that drivers aren't as good anymore. That could be quality of training. There's many reasons why that might be true. I myself, I don't see it. I still see lots of good, capable, professional drivers out here. And it doesn't matter. You can go back 50 years, 60 years, 70 years. There's always been that small contingent of drivers that just kind of acted outside the law. There's an idea maybe out there that that's happening more often. Myself, I don't see it. But if there is any truth to the quality of drivers now, thinking about it, my thought is that technology's got a lot to do with it. And the reason being, when I first started driving truck, everything was mechanical. The most technological thing we had in our trucks was our AM/FM radio and the CB. You could actually get your truck started in the morning, disconnect your battery, and throw it away. And as long as you didn't shut your truck off, it would run the whole day, the whole week. Didn't require any electrical systems at all. Everything was mechanical fuel pumps. As long as you had fuel, compression, oil to keep it lubricated, and water to keep it cool, you were good to go. As time went on, we've added technology to the trucks. We've got sensors now to tell us when the oil is low, when the water is low. Even got shutdown programs in the computers of the trucks now that if the truck was getting to or the engine was at a state where it's going to start to get damaged, it would shut down automatically. When I first started trucking, as I said, everything was mechanical. We had to physically get out and set our brakes, manual slack adjusters. I was actually taught to drive that using the brakes, the service brakes or the foot brake, they didn't want you to do that, or the guy that taught me how to drive anyway. He wanted me to learn how to drive, pay attention to the road, use my transmission and engine brakes accordingly so that I didn't have to use my service brakes other than coming to a full stop at a light or a stop sign, or in the case of emergency. And that's another big thing. We were taught to drive without relying on our brakes, and that way there, in an emergency, we had full braking capacity. The trouble with the brakes in the trucks, because of the weights we haul, if you're constantly on them, you do tend to get a little bit of brake fade, brake wear. And that's why in the past we had to physically set our brakes. That was part of our job. And if you used your brakes a lot, you were setting your brakes up a lot. If you stayed off them, you can get away with maybe having to set your brakes every couple of days or once a week, depending on how much you used them. Nowadays, we got automatic slack adjusters, so everything stays adjusted. The trouble is, because of that, and that care to detail about not using your brakes more than you need to, drivers have become a little bit complacent, I guess. I don't want to say lazy, but a little complacent, knowing that their brakes are always going to be there. Same is true of greasing the truck. A lot of us used to have to get out, physically grease our trucks, every couple of days or once a week type of thing, keep her lubricated. But it gave you an opportunity to get under your truck and look at everything, springs, wheel seals, things like that. Nowadays, they got auto greasers. Not everybody, but quite a few trucks have got auto greasers. Most drivers don't get underneath their trucks anymore. They really have no idea what's going on below the door sills, really. And that's not to say that they're doing anything wrong. It's just it's a different time now, different industry. Everything is technology. We used to have to learn how to shift a transmission. Now, if you can't shift, they give you an automatic. And from what I'm understanding, the industry is going predominantly to automatic transmissions in the next couple of years. And I think that's sad. I mean, part of the reason why I do enjoy driving truck is I like shifting. I like being in control. And speaking of control, once again, we were taught to drive by the seat of our pants. We didn't have ABS, we didn't have traction control, we didn't have anti-rollover systems in the trucks back then. So you learned how to drive and feel the road according to how, the truck was acting. You understood when you were going too fast in the corners. Now we've got all that technology in the truck, and I think drivers become reliant on that. They don't really pay attention to road conditions anymore. On an icy road in the old days, if you had your engine brake on, you could actually lock up the rear axles if you were going too slow. So much torque is generated with the engine brakes at a slow speed that it would actually stall the engine. Now you're in a situation where you're sliding down a hill, you've got no power steering, you've got no air being pumped into the air system because the engine's not running. So now you're in a situation where you got to try and get that truck fired back up again and regain control of the vehicle. Nowadays, the engine brakes, they get down to what they call idle or stall, and the computer shuts them off. You don't have to worry about stalling your engine anymore, so you always have that power. But once again, I think it's diminished the skills of the drivers in the sense that they're not feeling what the road's doing. They rely so heavily on the technology in the trucks that they don't realize they're in a bad situation until it's too late. And once again, I'm not blaming the drivers. It's just the way this industry is now. We're trying so hard to make it safer by putting all these safety features into the truck, technology. I think we should get back to teaching the drivers the way we were taught in the old days. And that's just my opinion, and I do welcome yours. I'm not trying to offend anybody, and I'm not trying to say that we were better back then. It was just different. A lot of the work we did was physical. A lot of the stuff we did with the trucks, we had to do ourselves. We didn't have cell phones. We had a CB radio, but that was good for short distances. If you're out in the middle of nowhere by yourself, you had to figure out the problem. Consequently, a lot of the drivers were mechanically apt. They were able to diagnose a situation and figure out a way to fix it, to at least get them to the next town where they could find a mechanic or a shop that they could actually work on it themselves. I've talked to older guys, much older than me in the industry, that have been out here forever. And I've heard stories of guys changing transmissions on the side of the road. It didn't happen a lot, but it wasn't all that uncommon either. Guys just did what they had to do. Nowadays, you break down the side of the road, you can't figure out what's going on with the truck without a computer. Even guys that, are good mechanics, a lot of the troubles stem from the wiring, the electrical systems, the sensors. The actual mechanical end of the trucks, they are very well built. The engines, transmissions, very little things go wrong with those. It's generally an electrical issue, and frankly, a lot of us just aren't trained, and maybe that's where the new drivers have got to step up on this, because when it comes to technology, this younger generation is way ahead of us. Like I said, I'm not trying to offend anybody, and I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus. It's just a different time, different generation. I really do think that, adding a lot of safety features isn't a bad thing, but if we're not teaching the guys the basics, it's like trying to build a house and not putting a foundation underneath it. You can be the best framer, the best roofer in the world, but that house ain't going to stand up. And that's kind of like trucking. You can put all the safety features you want into a truck, but if you don't teach the drivers from the ground up, you're not giving them a good foundation. And once again, that's just my opinion. Please comment, like and share, and subscribe. That would be wonderful. That's just my thought for today. Thank you, and have a great day. Stop recording.